Welcome to the podcast. We will be speaking with Cathrine Barth from Circular Norway, and you might already guess we are going to talk about a 360 economy. Cathrine is just above the Arctic Circle. I met her via LinkedIn, where she connected with me. Fantastic to have her on the podcast. She's a whirlwind of energy, very inspiring. You can find all the links we talk about in the show notes, as well as on our website. That's podcasts.earth. Without further ado, here's the podcast with Cathrine in Norway. So let me introduce you quickly. I'm speaking here with Cathrine Barth, and Cathrine is in Norway. And you are at the Arctic Circle is what you told me the last time we spoke briefly. Is that correct?
Yes, a little bit north of the Arctic Circle.
North of the Arctic Circle.
Wow. Bodø, yeah. So it's the home city of my parents.
Okay, and you just on a holiday, or you're working, or?
No, this time once a vacation, I would say. Using the quiet time around this, trying to continue the work on a book. I've been researching for about 3 years, and March this year just decided when COVID entered that just put on the engine and make this book happen. So. Been writing through 4 to 5 chapters, and this is also why I went north, so I can it can be a little tranquil and very inspirational to be here to work on this.
So how many chapters are going to be? How many chapters are you going to write in total?
Well, the plan is 10.
10, okay, so you're almost done.
Yeah. Well, almost halfway done. Well, it's nobody that I know that wrote books said it's easy. It's very inspiring, but it's also I discovered the need of the book, and if someone else wrote it, I would be so happy. Right. And when I've been on airports the last 4 years, and I always walk to the business bookshelf, you see where Harvard Business Review is and all that, and trying to find where do I find readable books about this new economy. And there isn't any, there weren't any. And we see this is also a temperature measure. Where are the leaders in our day? So if we don't get these books about the new economy on the shelves for what do the business leaders read, then we cannot rely on the business leaders to be in the mindset. So pretty bold enough. I was thinking, how can we make an airport book on circular economy?
Right.
Because there's so much great literature, but it's very technical. It's very intricate. It's very written by insight circular economists. And but it was one book that really inspired me on this, and that was Cathrine Barth. She started being put on these shelves. And her way of storytelling and her way of introducing the donut economy, being very bold about the communicating language and very including
more
language.
Like in layman terms, basically. Is that correct?
What would you mean by that, Peter?
Well, more like not in technical terms, but more in terms that everyone can understand. Is that like readable almost, correct? Is that what you're trying to do?
Very much, and very much, and it's readable, and it sticks to the mind and the memory. So very inspired by, actually, it's a contribution for the man who did the breakthrough of the linear economy. And learned how he actually did that. And if you would have 2 minutes for the story about Paul Samuelson, did you hear about him?
No, go ahead.
He was a great economist. He earned the Nobel Prize a few years later, but he was working at Stanford, came from MIT,
right?
And they were setting up economy classes because they had to retrain the post-war civil society in the United States. So Paul Samuelson, he was asked, can you please make an economy class so the students don't fail, because they had been failing because engineers didn't understand the complicated and technical way that the economy scientists try to teach economy in the pre and post-war era. And they said, Paul, you can do whatever you want to. We have 800 students signed up, and they cannot fail. Do whatever it takes. So he did what I today would call modern design thinking. He did insight on his students. And then he came up with this splendid economic language. He replicated this as engineers would understand.
Right.
So he made a model, the first economic model. It was actually drawn out as an engine with pipes and valves and input and flows, and any engineer would understand. And this became the book, which is Econ 101. any economist, linear economist, has been reading this. It was the most sold book for 6 decades.
Wow.
He evolved more than 250 models. And you can listen to the economic language also, how it replicates engineering. Oh, it's heating up again. And in the way he designed both the visual models and also the language, it was a success.
Okay.
And that was how sort of the new economic or the linear economic got its language that has been sort of expanding. And in our days, we believe that that's sort of a truth. It's more of a very good communication campaign, replicating what the Catholics did in medieval. Okay. So using pictures, models, and a language which is listenable and that is adaptable. And so this is sort of my inspiration.
And that's what you're doing with the circular economy.
For the circular economy.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay, there you go. And obviously you're CEO and founder, I believe, of Circular Norway. Tell me about it. What is it?
Circular Norway was set up this summer 2017.
Yeah.
After I had been on a very insightful journey to Helsinki for the first World Economic Circular Economy Forum.
Okay.
At that time, I had been working with circular economy in Norway, but being very puzzled about the silence about both the field and the practices and the lack of it in the debate or industry. And what I met in Finland wowed me so much. I didn't see the environmentalists there. Okay. I didn't see the waste management companies there, but I saw the McKinsey people, I saw the bank people, I saw the government leaders, I saw the business leaders. 2,000 people were invited and they met up. And we were only 8 people from Norway. And we said, well, how can we kickstart circular economy movement in Norway? Yeah. And then they said, a clever guy, well, you have to make like Ellen MacArthur did. You have to make an Ellen MacArthur organization like in Norway, and it has to be independent. It has to be made for collaboration. It has to be practical, and you're on board. So going back to Norway and being supported by key industry stakeholders, they joined me on this idea. We started evolving Circular Norway as an independent hub for driving innovation projects, knowledge sharing, and the aim was to accelerate circular economy in Norway.
What do you mean by independent? What do you mean? You mean politically independent, or?
Yes, the politically independent and also industry independent.
Industry independent?
Okay. Industry independent.
Why is that necessary?
In the circular economy, we are very much challenged by the silo thinking. Okay. Oh, you're in the process industry. Oh, you're in the shipping. Oh, you work with agriculture. And the variety of industries rarely collaborate together. Right. In lobbying and politics, they will always fight for their own interests. Right. And in the circular economy, you have to train your brain and your hands to look along your value chain, what kind of supply chain you're part of, both upstream, where your materials come from, but also understand downstream, where will your product be ending in the afterlife. And to do that, we have to nurture methodologies that the trade organization can work closely also with a production organization, because in a circular economy, it requires a more holistic view of the material journey and the product journey and the people who belong to different parts of the production value chain.
Totally different mindset, basically, than what's available right now. Is that correct?
Indeed. Okay. Challenged by linear thinking, which is very much fragmented, set up, masterminding and optimizing every single piece, but not seeing the whole journey, which is sort of the cause why we are in such terrible state for the resource outtake of the world, natural resources.
Yeah.
And not only hopefully, but being very dedicated that this is achievable when we start working together.
Okay.
And that's why independent is...
You say working together, it's really about collaboration, isn't it?
Indeed. And seeking contracts which are good for collaboration and not for the purpose of competition. Yeah. It's like, it seems silly, but when I started working with one of the major real estate construction company of Norway, Statsbygg, we're doing insight, and they said, well, one of the problems is maybe the contracts, because our contracts are older than internet. Right. And then being able to go down into the root cause system of identifying the barriers for circularity. It takes time and it takes patience, and it also reminds us that you cannot do it alone. We have to work together on this.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I did a podcast with Per Larssons of Ragn-Sells in Sweden. He was into waste management, obviously. That's different from what you do. You say you're industry independent. It's about collaboration. I also saw on your website that the world is only 9% circular.
Yes, Per Larssons has been a great inspiration. He is really one of those stepping up, not only working for his company, but for the entire industry, and also working in a very open, transparent way. Landslides is a beautiful company, and it's a Nordic company. So they are in a variety of markets, and they are also a good example of the kind of companies which are spearheading this field now. It's a family-owned company, and family-owned companies, they tend to have learned that, we existed 3 generations ago. We have to plan for 3 generations ahead. That is not so usual mindsets in the short-term business world. And the Landslides, I've been working with them several years ago, and their strategies really learned how foresighted they are. So we have to collaborate. The waste industry has to collaborate with producers, with vendors, and what they are doing. It also reminds me that we need to have sort of a natural science in a new available way. The world economy is only 9% circular. It means that less than 10% of the materials that flow through our value chain will ever get back or be returning. 90% will be lost out of the value chain, and either it will be in stock in housing, or it will be waste in the ocean, or most of it, a lot will be burned. So we burn our valuable materials before they're dead, before they give them a second chance to come back into the value chain again. And the good thing about this number 9%, it's the community of World Economic Forum. It is a measurement that is agreed between academics, researchers, governments, and business leaders.
Right. Okay. So that's where the number comes from, is it?
Yes, it is. So through collaboration, finding ways to measure the material streams and material flows, and also connected to the core societal and human needs. It's sheltering, it's nutrition, it's mobility, it's communication. These needs are basic wherever. If I live in Norway or in Nigeria, these will need to be covered. So how can we look at this in a one fact-based, consistent way? And how can we also say we're 9% now, how can we become 19 or 90% circular? So this is how strategies are made. We start with common understanding where we are right now.
And Norway, how is Norway doing in that picture? Is it also 9% or less? Because you said there were only nine representatives at that forum where you were in 2017.
Well, one of the ambitions when we were 9, we hope to be 90 next time. So really evoking a movement and including, so now it's no need to be walking around selling. It's having a wake-up call for circularity. Because so many people and business and organization has become very engaged, and we are expecting a national strategy for circularity in Norway made by the government this fall in December.
Okay, why is that? Why is December? What happens in December?
No, it's the climate ministry who has stated we will have it by then. Regarding the Norwegian number, this will be published in the end of August. So, and the amazing thing about this Norwegian Circularity Gap Report, it is answering to what was stated at the Davos World Economic Forum in January. Because the global number is not changing. When bad is getting worse,
is it stagnant?
The number is lowering. It's stagnating and it's going down. And what even worse is that total outtake of resources has exceeded 100 billion tons. And it's ever increasing because we're planning for consumption growth in the linear economy. So what they also said, the power of change, this belongs to the countries. Now we have to turn to the region and countries who can actually perform and implement that. We unhook the linear train. And we have been working for a long time to pilot a national study of circularity.
You've been involved in that report, have you? Or
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yes. We've been partnering very soon with Circular Economy Netherlands. Very skilled organization. They evolved these methodologies and these strategy tools.
Yep.
And we initiated discussions 2 years ago. How could we be among the front countries to measure a national economy?
Yep.
So Austria did it, and also recent this year, Netherlands did it. It was Netherlands government that paid for it. 24% circularity, but it also proves that systematically work has impact. They started in 2013, so they have a 7-year front run than our countries. So I am very excited to see how other countries will measure.
Yep.
I cannot reveal the Norwegian number, but we see this also as a maybe pilot for the Nordic countries to commonly onboard a measurement for the Nordic circular economy also. Mm-hmm. But what we will see, we will first time have a visual picture and clear fact-based numbers how the state of the nation is. Yeah. And then we don't, and that will be so relieving, because until now, there are so fragmented ways of explaining it and onboarding it, and everybody has to do it their own special way. But when we see the total number, I hope this can nurture really a force of circular leadership, both private and public, mm-hmm. to say we have to take all our capabilities and resources to improve our circularity in the Norwegian economy in our way.
Yeah, this is a good moment to think about it as well, isn't it? I mean, with COVID-19, everyone is just, they have a lot of time to think about this. Eh? What do you think? What is the situation like where you are?
It's holiday time now, so people are traveling our own country. And coming from up north, I discovered so many Norwegians discovering our country for the first time, entering the roads, seeking the woods, seeking nature, discovering the beauty and the amazing land we belong to. Yeah. And also you state sort of the quietness. I feel that the contemplation has struck people in so many ways. When it was really at the most silent, I was out there. I bought myself an electric bicycle, cycling in the streets that were totally empty. It was like the nature had given us a big cough. Yeah. We have been putting nature in cage for 200 years. Now it is returning. She is putting us in cages. One day we'll be walking out our houses and can meet again. And the topics that people talk about is very interesting, but I'm also listening a great fear, a huge fear that, we'll go back. We're jamming the economy with solutions that will not change from fossil, where people want to go out bathing and people want to pretend like it was yesterday. Uh-huh. But it is not yesterday anymore, Peter. I think this is the opportunity for a radical, fast change to a healthier and cleaner and safer economy. And what could have taken 10 to 30 years in political system planning, we now have the opportunity to really radically change to a green and healthier economy for all and create new jobs. Mm-hmm. So it's biased. Very grateful, but I meet people who are scared, saying we don't believe in it. People want to consume. They want to have the same lifestyle when it's opening up again. So we will see. Yeah, time will tell, basically. Yeah. Well, it teaches us to be very, have humility in meeting with what we thought was true and what was, I would say, orthodoxes are turning to paradoxes. And probably it awakens, at least me, that we are allowed to question what we're surrounded by. And we are also seeing that, well, we thought it was a human right to keep on flying planes across the earth all the time. And suddenly we see the airplane industry collapsing. Probably will never recover. No. But this is also how the big shifts in the world history has been. Yep. It's pandemia or wars, crises that suddenly move paradigms. Huh? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Back to the circular economy. I believe that you're working with certain regions, and you talk about the Nordic Circular Hotspot. I take that is the Nordic countries, right? That should work together. You say something about the 11th largest economy in the world. Is that the If you put together the Nordic economies, then that will become a huge market. It would be the 11th largest economy pre-COVID. And what we see now as circularity is emerging. I would say it's like internet in 1994.
Right.
So then you had www was one
Sure.
skill. So
I remember those times. Yes.
Yeah, you remember? I work with people who weren't even born these days.
I know. Yeah. Show them a cassette tape or something like that. They will, what?
Yeah. But understanding that we're a pre-evolving era, just as internet evolved in the 90s, as social media evolved 15 years ago, we will not see what is on the other side. But what we see is we are to implement a circular economy in the Norwegian way, and then a Swedish way, and then a Danish way, and then a Finland way. That's not very resource productive. So in the area that we are so lucky to have a sister nation in Finland, which has been a front runner, is really working strategically through the big markets, through EU, working collaborative with Japan. They are so fast ahead. Why should Finland work with the Nordics if the Nordics don't want to collaborate? And then you have the Swedish companies. You see Volvo, you see H&M, you see IKEA, for certainly, really testing it and around cells on their businesses. So the business leaders of Sweden are front-running this. And then you have Denmark doing it more political way, and you have Flemming Bessenbakke. What we discovered that we had to go to Netherlands to meet the pioneers of circularity. Okay. And we were people putting ourselves together. Can we replicate the wonderful model of Holland Circular Hotspot, which is a collaborative unit? It's made for collaboration, and how can we make a structure to make it feasible and attractive and compelling for the Nordic markets to collaborate and share innovation, make a pilot scalable, and evolve a circular Nordic market.
That can then be a example for it says in your article, it has the potential to become an international front figure for a transition to circular economy. So that means that you could be, if it works out properly, it could be an example of how really to collaborate and make progress that way, isn't it?
I think the power of the regions will be very important, and market is global, solutions are local. So finding the equilibrium of wanting to collaborate, finding it's more attractive to collaborate than compete. And also what you will see is that the Nordic countries, they have a common set of challenges, but they also have a common set of opportunities that could make the Nordic region outstanding, because we are trained for transparency. We have a flat structure. Call it a Scandinavian work culture, including, but also the consumption pattern in the Nordic countries is out of control.
In which way is that? What do you mean, out of control?
The economy, we buy and we purchase, and we are responsible for so much of the resource outtake through our imports and the way we consume and waste. So when we do measure material footprint per capita, we will find it highest in the world among the Nordic countries. And that is success in a linear economy because, very high growth. But then we have to discover there must be other ways of designing our products in and evolve a market, a new common market for circular solutions. And since every of these countries are small, it will not be able to scale it. But if you go Nordic, then we will actually be able to identify and let's grow a new market for circularity, because this is disruptive. It is a disruption. The disruption is beyond digitalization. So those who will seek benefits and want to explore circularity, they will note that we are an organization also wanting to increase demand for circularity. How can we increase the market mechanisms and introduce circular procurement systems for that? How can we onboard the cities, the mayors of cities, to use circular methodology to transition tools to become circular cities, and to do it in a unified way or a collaborative way?
Is that what you're aiming at? So what is your main target at the moment? Is it business? Is it regions? Is it cities? Because I see, from what I've read so far, I've seen you aim at quite a few different areas. What is your main area?
My main area is business leaders.
Business leaders, yeah.
Those who hasn't onboarded it yet, and those who are getting ready to transform.
Right.
And I use sort of the hashtag circular ready, coming from the days when we switched it from the fat TVs to the flat TV, preparing the system for HD TV ready. Yeah. And this is how I come with a system approach. Everybody belongs to a system, and the business system is really attaching us all. Yeah. So those who are so crucial to onboard and make confident, brave, warm-hearted business leaders wanting to step ahead. So and caring for their customers, caring for the material use, caring for the relations to natural resources, and then the politicians and R&D will follow.
But you talk about collaboration. Obviously, business is in the old sense, it's all about competition. So how do you, it's one of the questions I had really, because you say that the Norwegians, they always have an economy which has been closely tied to your ecology. So it means about having the right mindset. But for business, it's really about financial benefits at a certain point. And do you believe that at a certain point will come down to money and financial benefits for the business if they can see that being more sustainable, working in a circular economy, that will show them that they can have financial benefits? Will that be more important at a certain point for businesses, or is that differently in the Nordic regions?
This is a variety, but it certainly comes to financial benefit or financial risk. Okay. So the risk language all business owners and business leaders understand. And then if you seek the benefits, it's really about how do you create more value out of less resources, and how can your own waste become a benefit for others, and how can you both improve the economy of a company by gaining from what used to be a cost-based waste problem to income-earning value streams and a new business. Sometimes the benefit is not really in the same company that starts the problem. So this is why we work with symbiosis, synergies. So when your waste problem, who's owning your waste? Who's owning the material that Per Larsson was talking about the other day? And can you be more responsible about your own materiality before your own product becomes waste? I think this is, and the reason why I trust businesses is that they have trained for rapid change. Those businesses who do survive and have been doing that. I've been working corporate years ago, years myself. And when a company see a threat or see an opportunity, they have an amazing ability to just start the engine and make it rolling. And this is the muscles that I want to explore and engage business leaders and see that this is the opportunity window. And those who are heading along now, they are really outstanding. And they only started like 4 or 5 years ago. You will see Unilever, you will see IKEA, but what we do not see is proven profitability. But it's through the new business models. So they have to be, you have to be confident that if you change your business models from a waste-producing business model to a retaining value business model, how can your company survive? No one will go on that journey if you're not confident that this is going to be beneficial on the both short and long term.
Sure. Obviously, examples that you give, if they can at a certain point show that they're financially better off, then that will make a change in other companies as well, I take it. So it might be slow, but
there is another kind of business that is... And when I talk with sort of business, why do we have to know this? And then I say, well, in not so many years, we will have the Greta Thunberg generation. They will become our leaders, right? So just be prepared for that as well, because that's another mindset. They don't have to unlearn what we have been learning. Yeah. But then you have, I saw when I did Insight, how to establish Circular Norway and what is sort of the engine, the gear shift. Then this guy from Deloitte, he says, well, you have 3 ways of becoming circular business. First, you have either you can take a linear business and change and transition. And that's really the most difficult way at all, because that's actually about cannibalizing your own assets or your own knowledge, or it would be like putting up internet in a newspaper in the 90s.
Right. Totally different mindset. So you have to change your industry, basically, yeah? And that's difficult.
Yeah, so
can you do that? Or?
It is. So what we saw Yara has been doing, one of the global fertilization companies, they put up a separate business unit to explore and to grow in circular economy. And I think that's very wisely, because then they will concentrate on evolving, because what they come up with when Yara will go circular, it will obviously disrupt their own 100-year-old business model, and more companies will see that. But the second thing is, who are we opening a market for? And that's the unborn companies, those who yet have not seen its leader or its organization, but it's the one who discover the needs, and those what kind of companies and technologies will be needed to close loops and have an efficient and productive circular economy. We will need so much innovation, so much entrepreneurship, so much new skills, and those companies, we see them exploding, people with bright ideas, and they have to have special birth help, because they often work in a system and an ecosystem, and our funding systems or financing systems are not yet prepared for funding circular business entrepreneurships. So they have special challenges. But when they come out with the circular solutions, I truly believe that those who are put up as a fully circular business model from day one, we will see so many starlight and unicorn companies in a couple of years. And thirdly, we can import. We can see, what they're doing in Netherlands. I would call them, would you like to put up a branch in Norway? Shall we do it ourselves, or shall we be agents for each other and make it possible to scale? So these three ways of becoming a circular business is that they are totally different strategies.
Yeah, and you talk about 7 key principles, hey? And I saw a graph as well on your website. Why 7? Why 7 principles? I see something about prioritizing, regenerative resources, preserving, extending what's already there. 7 is a good number in narration.
You have 3, you have 7, or you have 11.
Yeah,
so
what is it? Why 7? Why 7?
Number, so, yes,
it's a nice number, but hey.
Well, I'm just a former journalist, so I gather knowledge and try to learn from the best. So this is not invented by us. It's really not invented here. And it's applied from Circular Economy, who has put up this 7 set. And these are generic enough and very specific enough, so everyone can at least identify with at least 2 and some to 7. But I see it's, so if I could, these 7 principles, which also connect a lot of the biases that has been. So first, it's about always prioritize renewable energy. And often we don't tend to think that energy is part of the circular economy, but this is also learning that going circular, this is what you do. Prioritize renewable energy. You rethink your business model. How can you go from a waste producing model to a retaining value model? Then thirdly, you preserve and extend what's already made. And this is what I did with my father's car. It has been repaired and maintained for years and years. And this is how we can reuse and because repairability is really out of the order if you buy a washing machine today. And then you incorporate digital technology. And this is why we are so many believing in this shift going radically fast, because when we digitalize and we put circularity as default in our technological systems, and we will see evolving practical solutions using building as material banks, which is an amazing technology, and we'll see how you trace and you source materiality. And then you use systems design principles. So you design for the future. That's number 5. So circular design, it's a very exciting game. And myself, coming from systems design, see when designers onboard circularity, that's where we have day one for any idea or product. So designing completely for design guides for circularity is very useful. Then we don't have to reinvent the way we make things, because it's already set good guidelines. And then we come to the point where use waste as a resource. And that might have been a challenge, because the waste industry has, at least in our region, sort of being wanting to own circular economy, and that has been not involving the producers or the others in the value chain. But we see waste as the resource for any kind of material search, or how can we identify that? And finally, number 7, which also is identical to SDG goal number 17, collaborate to create joint value. And that's like the starlight of it, the collaboration point as well.
Right, and you talk about the sustainable development goals. There you cover basically 8 of the goals of the 17 goals, correct? 7, 9, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 17, yeah?
You're faster than me on this one. I would say circularity applies to everything, all of them, but we just have to translate them and make them practical in the variety of areas. Yes.
Absolutely. You talked as well about sustainable energy. Obviously, that's not very difficult in Norway. I read in an article that the country runs nearly 100% renewable energy. Is that really right? Is that correct?
Norway is very lucky domestically. We're powered mainly by hydropower.
Hydropower, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so our relation to energy is very, I would say, schizophrenic, and it's very hard times because it also applies to how can we discuss our industries when we have a wealth economy based very much on fossil fuels. Yeah. And when I started working with this field 7 years ago, noting that there were 2 countries in Europe aiming for brown growth, was Romania and Norway. The rest of Europe was actually going on a green energy or a renewable energy transition. Noting that we have to put sort of the fossil, that's a political and business activity at itself. When we see how the Norwegian households and industries are run, it's made basically on renewable power. And that's also why we have so much process industry in our fjords, because it was attracted to cheap and renewable power historically. We are challenged by a kind of energy which is also an elephant in the room, and that's where we burn our materials and we make heating systems. But we are following the front runners in Netherlands, who are now sort of saying we have to phase out to the incineration camps. We have to find other ways to care for our materials. The fact that renewable energy is so crucial for circular economy, being so energy related, we forgot to start exploring the opportunities of resource management. We've been so oriented to energy management in our industries that the resource management has been lacking.
Right.
So seeing now this will be more integrated and united when we start to measure the emissions and the footprints.
Sure. And then I saw something about, educational programs, what you do from your side on circular business models. What are you teaching exactly? Obviously, you're teaching this, as you mentioned already, to businesses. So that is your target. But what exactly are you teaching them? Is that the beginnings, or is that the 4 goals that I saw on your website, 4 phases, or where do you start from your side?
We have been running innovation programs for unlocking value chain for real estate and construction industry, a year-long program, including almost 30 of the stakeholders within the industry. And that's both about learning and unlearning, doing and getting insights. So that's a strategy innovation program. That's one way. Also learning the methodology of transitioning of the cities. So how can a city find a collaborative way with its businesses and inhabitants to pilot a way to transition to evolve new business practices in its own region. I have this ABC for circular economists.
No, that's exactly what's needed. If you just talk in technical terms, then no one's going to say, yeah, okay, fine, thank you. But if you actually talk in a way that people can actually understand it and why it's better, and from what you say already, there's a demand from the customers for this. That's correct, right? That's what you just said.
It is coming, and it's not to me to translate. I really rely to the specialists with any kind of industry. They are to translate. What does it mean for our fishing company? What does this mean in our bank? But how can you make this generic set, and maybe in the storytelling or in this responsible, including way? And also when people might be sleeping until, but that's one of the first stakeholders we onboarded in Norway, and I think that was a clever one. It was involving the accountants. Accountants, can you imagine, they being heartburning environmentalists now? It's amazing to see the accountant organization in Norway. Because Inside had told me, what is the most difficult thing when you want to go from selling winter jackets and leasing them, and even take more responsibility for repairing them, and you can return them? And who would love this idea in a jacket industry? And then this CEO, he says, well, I can tell you who that will stop it. It would be the accountant. They will say, no way, this is going to be too costly. And then the market guy, he can dream on, or the sustainability woman, she can yell out, but it will be stopped. So the dialogue with the accountant organization said, can you be those who are stopping this transition? And then how can we make circular business models accountable? And that was also how we discovered the linear risk model. So the linear, how can you measure your own linear risk? And that is the language that most business leaders also understand. And it's not so fearful, it's very logic. And okay, we don't want to be exposed for linear risk. And it's very simple. First, how exposed are you for virgin materials in your input? Mm-hmm. Okay, so how vulnerable are you in selling items that you don't know where to end in your outputs? Thirdly, how are you organizing your way of innovation or innovating yourself, your own operation? And fourthly, how are you organized for collaboration outside? So through these four and it's evolved by KPMG. I didn't invent this. This is a language that is applicable and understandable, and it sort of turns the ice flake upside down and say, well, it's not about being fearful and daring going into the circularity, but it would be pretty stupid to not try to avoid the linear risk, which is accelerating every day now.
Mm-hmm. Okay, fair enough. Obviously, should this come from the government side as well? Because we talked about, you said earlier, Denmark is going the political way, and I saw an article on BBC actually that it's now illegal to fail to act on climate change in laws in Denmark, whereas Norway says, well, we want to be climate neutral by 2030, but they plan to buy emission offsets from other countries. And they say that Norway's domestic emissions are actually higher than 30 years ago. Have you got anything to say about that? Any thoughts?
I can only what to excuse. This is the hard fact, and this is the reality. Yeah. And if it continues this way, this will not be workable. Mm-hmm. You have to be accountable for the emissions where we are, and the way we're offsetting the problem and delivering it to other regions in the world. Maybe that will become a big opportunity for other places in the world, but it's not responsible. And the policy making is very important to create
government.
trust.
That's government, though, isn't it? Yeah.
And also, we have to understand that the policy is now subsidizing the linear economy. So there is already a set of regulations which make the linear model preferable until we change the regulations. What I do regret in this matter, Norway not being part of the EU, and that makes it a little bit more troublesome to onboard the European circular movement, which has been paving a way for the last 5 years. It's amazing. So I follow the EU Green Deal, and if we could put our government regulations and strategies very close up to the EU, I'm very hopeful for the Norwegian future. Mm-hmm. I am very scared that maybe Norway wants to do it in our own special way.
Maybe it's better. So you don't know. But
so this is also why we start to see collaboration in the Nordics, so we can have the variety of premises work this out.
Okay.
What Denmark did is amazing, making the future responsibility, or making us responsibility for the future. And if we don't, and there is a amazing book coming out, The Good Ancestor.
Okay.
How to think long-term in a short-term world. And it's not on Amazon yet, but I really followed his talks and seminars this summer. And he teaches us to think long-term. How can we plan for cathedral thinking? How can we plan for 7 generations ahead? Who are the voters who are not yet born? So who are part of today's governance and politics that we have to consider in the short-term politic cycle? So what Denmark did is example that if you don't deliver to 2030, then you will lose your government position.
Right.
But it's not one or the other. So what we see, 13 countries in Europe has now delivered national strategies. In Norway, we have it on the climate ministry, and I fear that makes it weaker than if it would be governed by the business industry. That is the business ministry. That is what we see in Denmark as well. This is run by business leaders, and it's about the Danish economics.
Yeah, got one other question. Was in a news article. I just want to know what you think about it. Something about a landslip in Norway, a landslide. It was a June article. Climateadaptionplatform.com. Landslide, houses swept away, cabins swept away, and they say this is climate change impact on rainfall. Can be just water seeping into the mountains. Maybe always has happened. Always tragedies have happened, but they say it's directly related to climate change. What's your opinion?
Seeing that film clip is made me to tears. This is not the first time. A couple of years ago, this also happened on Svalbard because more rain, the tundra is melting on the Arctic areas of the world. The ice that used to sort of be compacting our Earth, so that we will see that our nature and landscape will be changing. I am not into the discussion, is it man-made or not, but climate change is happening. Mm-hmm. And when I have been working closely, getting to know the island of Svalbard. Are you familiar with that?
No, but you're north of the Arctic Circle, so I know that you are very familiar with this.
There you go, because this landslide you saw, it's when the temperature is rising so high now, so fast in the Arctic regions, and Svalbard is the place on Earth where the temperature is rising fastest. Okay. It has been, and this summer it was temperature record of 22 degrees. It shall not be. It's like the main temperature should be 8 or 10 degrees. And landslide on Svalbard, some years ago, was a big reminder that the tundra is melting there. It's started to grow grass. It's a small community, 2,000 people living there. It has been, it's a wonderful society. And I have been having this dream, how could this be the first practical example of transition to a perfect circular economy, because you have a perfect closed system. You know, everything comes in, everything comes out, mm-hmm. and it's a functional society. And how could this be a place that deserves to spearhead the solutions, because they're hit so hard by the climate change. Mm-hmm. And not even our mainland and not even the world knows how hard the climate change is now affecting the conditions on Svalbard. And also for people living in these rapid changes and they have to move part of the city because of the landslide. I have
heard about it. They designed a whole new city for the inhabitants to go to at a certain point, right? Is that correct? Is that what we're talking about?
They're moving. They're taking, because it's too dangerous to live behind the hills, so they have to move down to the shore. Right. And that's because they understand this will become worse, and it will not return to the climate we used to have there. Yeah. And what is also beautiful about Svalbard is the place that is the deposit of the seed bank. So it's a global seed bank. It was put up there because of the Arctic climate. Okay. And that's where we could put the genetic material of any seed and any biological growth is stored in, and it's built to last for 1,000 years. So it's like Notre Dame for our decade, mm-hmm. to understand that. And the reason for protecting these seeds, it was, if the world is going to hit a major war, a disaster, if countries are to be torn out, and we will have one place on Earth where we store the genes of the biological material of the Earth. So the paradox of this is that after 10 years, it wasn't surrounded by Arctic anymore because of the climate change. So now they have restored this seed bank. But this is a very good example of cathedral thinking and thinking long term. So if anything would happen with our civilization now, the biomaterial will be available for the future.
Where can people find you? I've seen you on Twitter, for one, at Cathrine Barth, and you've got a few followers as well. That's very good indeed. And obviously you have a website as well. Hey, is it circularnorway.no? is also circularnorway.com, or is there anywhere else?
Yes, Circular Norway is one among several of the projects that I'm working with. So I believe in my Gmail would be Cathrine Barth 1 at Gmail.
Okay.
Yeah. So and also of course through Circular Norway, we will establish. The reason is we are establishing it will be Cathrine Nordic Circular Hotspot during this fall, as this will be what I'm mainly be dedicated to.
Okay.
But thoroughly on LinkedIn. I love Twitter. I love LinkedIn. I left watching television several years ago, and I find so much information. And I have this 2-hour Twitter time Sunday mornings with so many clever people, and it enlightens me and connects me with a wonderful global circular community. So many, and LinkedIn as well. A very insightful place to both reach me and those that I relate very much with.
Of course. Is there anything else you would like to mention? Anything that's coming up besides your book, obviously, but anything that is going to happen? You mentioned, obviously, decisions are going to be made by the end of the year. Anything that you would like to say?
Yes. What I have been learning, that's also why I want to put the documentaries of the learning into a book. But what we see with a new economy, we need a new economic language. So during COVID, I have been part of a survey done by Mr. Frank Lentz. He's a language doctor working with language innovation, words that work and words that doesn't. And we have identified how can we onboard a new economy if you don't have a language that responds for the new economics. Remember, economy is the old Greek language for ekon is household, nomos is the norms for. So getting back to the core of economic means how do you household then we also see that a lot of the words that we apply when we evolve the new economics, sustainability economics, are old school. And we see that it's not communicating. We see that maybe climate will not be the driver for the new economic. Maybe it will be other drivers. Maybe green doesn't communicate for all. Maybe green is very provoking for some. And realizing that Norwegians are among the third climate deniers in the world, we see.
Is that so? Yeah.
So I think one of the heart projects that I'm very curious how to evolve. So anyone, if this has a resonance, how to do this as a Nordic, Norwegian, or European project? How can we get into our languages and identify a functional language that is recognizable and appealing and compelling to onboard a cleaner, healthier, a safer economy, not having to force it on, but evolving. And every new time has new language. I'm not writing to you through my portable typewriter, right? We made new language for digitalization.
Yeah.
So this is maybe when you say, is there anything else? This is really something else, because when we do open the new economic language, I think this will include a much faster pace. So we don't have to wait for 10 to 30 years to reach the goals of climate neutrality in 2050. Maybe we can do it in a year or 2 or 3, just as the Berlin Wall changed Europe in 1 second. I see COVID maybe making it possible for us to accelerate transition rapidly. And one of the Berlin Wall breakers would be to evolve a common set or an economic language that is appealing.
Makes total sense to me. Thank you very much for being on the podcast. Thank you.
Wonderful, Peter. Thank you so much for being together with you.
That was a podcast with Cathrine Barth from Circular Norway. Fantastic to have her on the show. I'll put all the links in the show notes. You can find the latest news on podcasts.earth. That is EARTH at the end. You have been listening to Peter de Vries, and it's much appreciated that you've done that. And don't forget to tune in next time. Thank you.